Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract love, respect, friendships, opportunities, and kindness everywhere they go, while others feel like they're constantly chasing people just to be noticed? What if the only thing separating those two realities wasn't luck, personality, appearance, or social skills, but a single assumption about who they are? Today's real-life manifestation success story proves exactly that. The transformation you're about to hear started with nothing more than a decision to stop identifying with an old version of the self. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why changing your self-concept may be one of the most powerful manifestation techniques you'll ever practice. Welcome back to Real Life Manifestations, the channel where we share inspiring real-life manifestation stories, powerful law of assumption insights, and practical lessons based on Neville Goddard's teachings to help you consciously create the life you truly desire. If stories like this inspire you and strengthen your faith in what's possible, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's get into today's incredible success story. The person sharing this experience begins by describing a reality that many people can relate to. From childhood all the way until they were around 18 or 19 years old, friendships always felt one-sided. They were constantly the one making the effort, the one reaching out first, the one trying to keep relationships alive. It seemed like no matter how much they cared about other people, that same energy was rarely returned. Instead of naturally attracting friendships, they felt like they were always chasing them. They often found themselves wondering why they weren't included, why they weren't appreciated enough, or why people didn't seem as excited to spend time with them as they were with everyone else. Those experiences slowly became part of their identity. Without realizing it, they started believing they were simply someone who had to work harder than everyone else to be loved, accepted, or valued. And as Neville Goddard often explained, the world simply reflects back the assumptions we hold about ourselves. When someone believes they are overlooked, reality has an incredible way of confirming that belief. Not because the world is against them, but because consciousness continuously expresses itself according to the identity we occupy. Eventually, this person reached a point where they simply couldn't continue living that way. As they got older, something shifted internally. It wasn't because someone came along and finally treated them differently. It wasn't because they suddenly became more attractive, changed careers, or developed extraordinary social skills. The change happened first within. They describe it as though a switch flipped inside their mind. In that moment, they made a powerful decision. They decided the old version of themselves no longer existed. The version who chased friendships, constantly sought validation, felt left out, and believed they weren't appreciated enough, that identity was over. Instead of trying to fix the old self, they simply stopped identifying with it altogether. That single decision became the foundation for everything that followed. Around the same time, they had been watching many videos from Eric on the power of I am. If you've ever listened to his content, you'll know he often speaks with complete certainty about his self-concept. He confidently repeats affirmations such as being everyone's top priority and believing that nobody is better than him. Rather than simply admiring that confidence from a distance, this person decided to make those ideas their own. They began adopting entirely new assumptions about themselves. Instead of believing they had to earn love and attention, they assumed they were naturally magnetic. Instead of believing people overlooked them, they assumed people genuinely loved being around them. They accepted that they were deeply loved, cherished, appreciated, and treated like a princess. They imagined that people naturally wanted them included in conversations, gatherings, and experiences. They decided that wherever they went, people would enjoy their presence and value having them around. At first, nothing appeared to happen. Their outer reality still looked exactly the same. There wasn't any immediate evidence that these new assumptions were working. In fact, they admitted it felt strange. Like many people beginning a self-concept journey, they questioned whether they were simply pretending. It felt unfamiliar because they were thinking completely differently from the identity they had carried for almost 2 decades. But instead of giving up, they made another important decision. They chose to continue assuming those beliefs were true anyway. Not because they already had proof. Not because they suddenly felt confident every moment. But because they realized they truly had nothing to lose by believing something better about themselves. This is one of the biggest lessons Neville Goddard taught. Faith doesn't wait for evidence. Faith persists before evidence appears. Your imagination leads. Reality follows. Little by little, their outer world began rearranging itself in ways they never expected. People they had never met before started smiling at them for absolutely no reason. Complete strangers would greet them warmly as they walked by. Simple interactions suddenly felt different. There was an ease and friendliness they had never experienced before. At work, something remarkable happened. Their coworkers began treating them like the little princess of the team. Instead of feeling invisible, they became someone people naturally looked after. They were treated with kindness. They were treated with respect. People appreciated them. The atmosphere around them completely shifted. Then their social life transformed as well. They began forming incredible friendships in places they never expected. Some of these friendships developed with people they never imagined they would connect with. Conversations flowed naturally. Relationships developed effortlessly. There was no chasing anymore. Everything happened organically, as if people were simply drawn toward them. Another surprising change was how often they began receiving gifts. Unexpected acts of kindness started becoming normal. People enjoyed giving to them. Thoughtful gestures became part of everyday life. Even strangers on the street would randomly begin conversations. Instead of feeling unnoticed, they found themselves constantly attracting positive attention. One of the sweetest parts of their story involved little children. Children, who are often beautifully authentic and honest, would randomly compliment them simply because they noticed something about them. There was no hidden agenda, just genuine appreciation. People also began insisting they come along to gatherings, events, and social activities. Instead of wondering whether they were welcome, they became someone others genuinely wanted around. Invitations came naturally. Inclusion became effortless. Feeling wanted became their new normal. And those weren't isolated experiences. According to the storyteller, there were countless moments just like these. So many, in fact, that it sometimes felt almost unreal. When they looked back at who they used to be, it was difficult to believe they were the same person. But perhaps the biggest transformation wasn't actually how everyone else behaved. The greatest transformation happened inside. Today, they simply assume that people always treat them incredibly well. Not because they need to convince themselves. Not because they're forcing positive thinking. But because that's now who they believe they are. They know they deserve kindness. They know they deserve respect. They know they deserve appreciation. They describe themselves as a kind person who naturally attracts good experiences. Someone who is like a magnet for wonderful people, meaningful friendships, generosity, love, and positive interactions. And because that's become their identity, reality continues reflecting it back. This story beautifully demonstrates one of Neville Goddard's greatest teachings. Everyone is you pushed out. The assumptions you hold about yourself silently shape the way people respond to you. When your identity changes, your world has no choice but to mirror that change. Notice that this person didn't spend months trying to manipulate other people into liking them. They didn't learn complicated social techniques. They didn't chase validation. They didn't force friendships. Instead, they changed the story they were telling themselves. They stopped identifying as someone who was forgotten. They stopped identifying as someone who was left behind. They stopped identifying as someone who had to earn love. They simply became the version of themselves who was already loved, already valued, already magnetic, already important. And reality faithfully reflected that assumption. If you've been struggling with friendships, relationships, workplace interactions, or feeling invisible, perhaps the question isn't, why don't people appreciate me? Perhaps the better question is, who have I been assuming myself to be? Because the moment you change the answer to that question, you begin changing the reality that follows. Imagine waking up every morning already expecting people to enjoy your company. Imagine assuming you're naturally memorable. Imagine believing you're someone's favorite person without needing external proof. Imagine walking into every room expecting kindness, respect, warmth, and appreciation. Those assumptions may seem small, but as this success story demonstrates, they can completely transform your life. The external world is often just the delayed echo of your internal identity. Change the identity, and eventually, the echo changes too. What makes this story especially inspiring is how simple the process really was. There were no complicated manifestation rituals, no endless techniques, no obsessive monitoring of results. Just a decision to abandon an old identity and consistently accept a new one until it became natural. That is the real power of self-concept. Not pretending to be someone else, but choosing who you truly want to be and refusing to identify with anything less. As always, remember that manifestation isn't about becoming worthy. It's about recognizing the worth that was already within you and allowing your assumptions to reflect that truth. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. If this story inspired you, gave you hope, or reminded you of your own power, make sure to subscribe to Real Life Manifestations for more real manifestation success stories and practical law of assumption teachings. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and share your thoughts or your own manifestation experiences in the comments below. We love reading your stories, and your experience could inspire thousands of others. Until our next video, keep trusting your imagination, keep living from the end, and remember, the version of yourself you consistently assume to be is the version your reality will always reflect.